completing the second day of our retreat. Now been rained on many times, getting expert in being patient with the rain. The devas must be very happy. Somebody must be meditating well somewhere. Devas are celebrating like anything. Hopefully the weather forecast is that the rain will pass and from here on it will be a bit drier. But changing weather is always a good test of your patience, mindfulness. So we have a few questions to answer tonight. Dear Ajahn, thank you for your teachings. Would you give us some advice on how to reduce our ego or do a self-check on it so that we are not affected by the worldly winds? Can't do much about the real wind, can we? When it comes, it comes. You just have to endure it. But the worldly winds, those 8 worldly winds, 4 pairs, gain and loss, praise and blame, status, loss of status, pleasure and pain. 4 pairs of experience that blow on us every day from each side, affecting our mind. Kind of like bullies, testing, teasing us, poking us to see if we're going to react, see if we're going to get attached. So even the good stuff can be like that. Gain, everyone likes gain, everyone wants fame and fortune, everyone likes to be praised, everyone likes status, everyone likes pleasure. But it still causes attachment, craving and attachment if we're not mindful. And the Buddha pointed out, craving and attachment, tanha, upadana, is the cause of suffering. So when we say ego, how to reduce ego, what you really mean is how to reduce craving and attachment, because that's the expression of ego. Ego is a Latin word, it's not Pali. We use it, I think everyone knows what it means, somebody with ego, sense of self. Do you know who I am? They like to say that one, don't they, when the police stop you. Do you know who I am? In Australia, if you're a monk, the police stop you. Well, they don't usually give you trouble, but you don't get any privilege. But if you're in Thailand, the police stop you and they go, oh, you got a monk, go, go, go. They give you a little bit of flexibility when you're a monk, or when there's a monk in the car. They don't like to make bad karma by arresting monks or drivers with monks, usually speaking. But ego comes up, doesn't it, in all kinds of situations. When good things happen, it boosts our ego, inflates our ego. We say we're high, our ego goes up into the clouds. When things go wrong, get some unpleasant experience, the ego feels crushed, feels hurt. And this is all upadana, craving, tanha, upadana. Self-view is one way of describing it. Ditthi, sakkaya ditthi, it's the first fetter which everyone has to work with until they're a stream enterer and they've abandoned it. So self-view comes up. Anything gets in your way of your pleasure, your success, what you want to get, self-view is triggered and you get upset, angry. Someone else gets more than us, we get jealous. Maybe you're down at the food tables and someone else takes the last piece of your favourite food before you do. Why did they get it and not me? The ego is stirred up, isn't it? Or maybe you're ahead of them and you say, well, I'm going to take it because I'm important. I'm a VIP, so I'm going to take the food and I don't care what anyone else thinks. That's the ego as well. So how do we deal with the ego or reduce it? That's why we practice dana, sharing, giving, helping. And maybe help somebody you don't really want to help will help reduce your ego. You might have the thought, I don't want to help that one. They've always been unkind to me, rude to me. The Buddha said, you should still help them because you'll erode away some of your attachment. So dana is very good for reducing ego. Sila is also reducing ego. Maybe somebody, they're rude to you, get some insult, criticism, maybe it's untrue, unjustified, and your ego is stirred up. But you keep the precept and you just take it. You don't argue, you don't swear, you don't say anything, you don't do anything other than maintain mindfulness, patience, and maybe reflect on what they've said. So precepts will help reduce the ego. And of course meditation helps reduce the ego. Cultivating mindfulness brings us steadiness of mind, clarity, equanimity. So when you have equanimity, the ego kind of disappears for a while, doesn't it? It takes a back seat. Because equanimity is you're not going with your likes and dislikes, your preferences, you're not acting on them, speaking on them. You're still functioning, but you're not following craving or attachment in that moment when mindfulness is present. So when do you see the ego disappear most clearly? Well, when you meditate and say you're practicing mindfulness of breathing, anapanasati, and your mind stays with the breath more and more and lets go of all the thoughts, the craving, the attachment more and more, you might get to a point where your mind is really still, quiet, bright, alert, happy, aware, but you're not thinking, you're not desiring, you're not sleepy and dull, you're just knowing. This is the state of samadhi. And at that point, the ego is gone for a while anyway. You get a rest. The chattering voice of the ego has gone quiet, so you get a nice rest from that. You're not too bothered by pain, discomfort in the body. Maybe it completely disappears, or at least it doesn't bother you. All the reactions of a normal sense of self or ego disappear when you are in samadhi. On the subtlest level, the ego is still there, so you can even form attachment to samadhi. So it's one danger that you have to be careful of. So you might have a really good meditation, say in the afternoon, really peaceful, bright, still, and you go down to evening drink and you walk in. I am the one who's had the good meditation. And the ego comes back up again, doesn't it? I can meditate well. Maybe you think I'm better than everyone else. Occasionally you hear that, meditators who say, my meditation is better than anyone else here. Anyone who's experienced in the practice will usually start laughing at that point. If you're going around telling everyone how good you are, then there's something missing from your practice, isn't it? Your ego has taken over and wisdom has disappeared, mindfulness has disappeared. So conceit is one expression of ego that can come in even when we do good. I am more generous than anyone else, I'm kinder than anyone else, as though it's some kind of competition. I offer more, I do more for others, I'm more self-sacrificing, I have better precepts than them. Maybe you keep the 8 precepts and someone comes to the monastery only trying to keep 5 precepts. I'm better than you. The ego can emerge. Or you attain some samadhi. My samadhi is deeper than yours, better than yours. Sometimes ego comes out with knowledge, doesn't it? What we know. You've studied a lot, read a lot, can talk very well about Buddhism, the Dhamma, so you think you're better than everyone else. It's quite common. There was once a monk who came to Ajahn Chah's after being a Pali scholar for about 10 years or so, and he was a very good scholar, so he knew a lot. But inside he realized he hadn't meditated much, he still had an ego. He knew the scriptures and the texts, he knew how to be a monk, he could chant, do all the ceremonies, everything very well. But he hadn't meditated very much. And he wanted to learn meditation. So he came to live with Ajahn Chah. But he had a problem, it's because he knew so much of the texts, he knew Pali, he's a scholar. He couldn't help but look down even on Ajahn Chah, I know more than him. Even though Ajahn Chah we consider to be an arahant, with no ego, no attachments, practiced very well, all the way to Nibbana. So really not somebody to look down on, but if you have a lot of book knowledge, sometimes you do that. You attach to your knowledge yourself with your ego. And it's certainly a very useful thing to have a lot of knowledge, and you can help people and understand things, but if you haven't let go of your attachment, it can also be an obstacle. So this monk would walk around constantly judging Ajahn Chah. Why did he say that? That doesn't sound right. Why is he here teaching? He doesn't know as much as I do. He kept thinking like that, and he'd get very angry with Ajahn Chah. And he started to doubt Ajahn Chah's attainment. You think, they say Ajahn Chah's got samadhi, he's arahant. I'm not sure about that, because he knows so much. He thinks he's the only one who knows anything. Ego. So one day he was waiting underneath Ajahn Chah's kuti. Ajahn Chah came down the staircase. His room was upstairs. Came down the stairs and just walked up to him and said, so what level have I attained then? Meaning, am I a Sotapanna, Anagami, Arahant? And the monk was shocked, because he'd been thinking that just before Ajahn Chah came down. He's thinking, so what level has Ajahn Chah attained? But he didn't say anything, he was just thinking it. So Ajahn Chah said this, and the monk immediately knew, he's just read my mind, he knows exactly what I'm thinking. And he said a little bit of his ego disappeared in that moment, because he's so surprised and shocked, but at the same time impressed. And he realized, everything I think Ajahn Chah knows. My thoughts are just expression of ego, they're not real Dhamma yet. Ajahn Chah didn't say any more than that, he just showed the monk, I know what you're thinking. And that's, for anyone with faith and respect for a teacher, that's enough. When they know what you're thinking, you don't think anymore like that. You're going to go quiet. You're more humble, more respectful, and your ego goes down. Ajahn Chah then spent the next year torturing that monk. Spiritually torturing, not physically. The word in Thai is toraman. It means to give the kilesas, the attachments, the cravings, hard time, because you want to let them go, you want to abandon them, so you've got to give them a hard time. You can't indulge them, follow them. So sometimes this monk would start piping up with his views because he knew a lot, and Ajahn Chah would just look at him like, are you really mindful with all this talk? Perhaps the monk was talking too much sometimes. And of course he was always getting angry, not just with Ajahn Chah, with other monks. He had an anger problem. He admitted this, but he was still dealing with it. And he would look down on other monks, they're not as good as me, he would say, criticize them, argue with them. He was a bit argumentative because he was angry and conceited at the same time. But he had a big tattoo of a tiger on his arm. And Ajahn Chah had him live in a kuti right next to Ajahn Chah, but quite close, so Ajahn Chah could see him, see what he was up to, keep an eye on him. The monk didn't like that. It's like he always felt, Ajahn Chah's watching me. I've got to meditate, I've got to do everything properly because he's right there, he'll see me. So that was already kind of this Toraman, torture, being in Ajahn Chah's eyesight all the time. And whatever he's up to, Ajahn Chah will be checking on him, asking, where is he, what's he up to, what's he doing? And one day this old villager came to visit Ajahn Chah, talk about something, and then the villager didn't know the way home. And in those days there's no roads or walls or much infrastructure in the monastery. It was very simple, it was just a jungle. And the villager had come in and he lost his way to go out, he wasn't sure where to go. So Ajahn Chah gave him directions. He said, you've got to go past that hut you see over there, and then you'll pick up a path behind it and you can go through the forest. But when you get to that hut, you better stop and have a look around it first. He said, why? He said, because there's a tiger living there. Very fierce tiger. Oh, very fierce. It's given a lot of people a few scares over the last few months. And the man said, oh, okay. So he went and he walked, and when he got to the kuti, he walked all the way around. And the monk with the tiger tattoo, who had this anger problem, was sitting upstairs, and he saw this man walking all the way around the kuti as though he's lost something. So he came down, he said, what are you doing? Have you lost something? He said, no, I'm checking for the tiger. Ajahn Chah said there's a really fierce tiger living in this kuti or around this kuti, so I'm just checking, make sure he's not here before I walk past. And the monks all went, okay, yeah, no, that's okay, you can walk, it's safe. And off the man went, but the monk knew exactly what Ajahn Chah was getting at. Calling him a tiger, fierce tiger, angry tiger. That's me. So his ego was crushed again with this comment from Ajahn Chah. So Ajahn Chah had a way with words, and sometimes he'd teach people indirectly. He wouldn't just say, oh, you've got a big ego, or you've got too much anger. He'd find a situation to get them to see themselves. So in that moment when he realized, oh, they're calling me a tiger and that's not good. I want to be an enlightened monk, but I'm a tiger, I've got anger problem. So his ego, he said, it disappeared. At that moment, a lot of his ego was kind of pushed out. And he stayed in the robes and had great faith, attained great faith in Ajahn Chah, and would follow his teachings. Eventually he had his own monastery. I knew him right till he died. About 10 years ago he died. So the best way to reduce your ego, I'd say, is become a monk or a nun. But failing that, well, just keep practicing. Dana, sila, bhavana. Don't take your ego too seriously. Oh, question in Thai. ถ้าเราเป็นคนที่มีอัตตามีทิฏฐิมานะสูงเราควรแก้ไขอย่างไรครับ Almost exactly the same as the last question, except for it's in Thai. If you're someone with a lot of strong sense of self, ego, with great attachment to your views and opinions and your conceit. How should you remedy this? Go and live with Ajahn Chah. It'll be done quickly. Maybe I'll say a few words in Thai and then in English. ก็เหมือนที่เทศเมื่อกี้นี้อัตถะตัวตนมาจากไหนก็มาจากอวิชชาความหลงยึดนี่เป็นเรากายเป็นเราความคิดเป็นเราความรู้เป็นเราความรู้สึกเป็นเราบางทีก็มีตัณหาอยากได้อยากมีอยากเป็นอยากเก่งอยากดังอยากมีชื่อเสียงอยากมีเงินทองมีอำนาจโลกธรรมเราอยากได้ความสุขตรงนั้นสมัยนี้สังคมก็นิยมให้มีอีโก้สูงเพราะว่าเรามีความรู้สึกถ้ามีอีโก้สูงเราจะได้ในสิ่งที่เราต้องการจะได้แข่งกับคนอื่นได้ชนะคนอื่นได้แต่เพราะอีโก้เกิดจากอวิชชาตัณหาอุปทานสิ่งที่เรายึดในใจอันนี้ก็เป็นเหตุให้เกิดทุกข์อีโก้สูงผิดหวังง่ายเจ็บใจน้อยใจง่ายถ้าใครยังไม่เห็นอีโก้ของเราความดีของเราสิ่งที่เราความรู้สึกตัวตนของเราคนอื่นไม่เห็นก็จะน้อยใจทุกข์ใจทำไมเขาไม่เคารพเราทำไมเขาไม่ให้เกียรติเราทำไมเขาดูถูกเราอีโก้ไม่ชอบถ้าไม่มีอีโก้ไม่มีความรู้สึกตัวตนก็ไม่มีปัญหาเขาพูดดีพูดไม่ดีก็ไม่ว่าไม่มีปัญหาเราต้องเห็นโทษของอัตตาตัวตนพิจารณาตั้งสติพิจารณาบ่อยๆแล้ววิธีแก้ก็คือให้ทานสม่ำเสมอดีที่สุดให้ทานกับคนที่เราไม่ชอบอีโก้ความรู้สึกตัวตนก็ลดน้อยลงทันทีเลยให้ทานสม่ำเสมอเจริญเมตตากรุณากับสรรพสัตว์ทั้งหลายอีโก้ก็ค่อยๆน้อยลงถ้ามีการให้หรือมีการช่วยเหลือคนอื่นอัตตาตัวตนก็อาจจะมีน้อยเดียวในขณะนั้นถือศีลอัตตาตัวตนก็ต้องยุบลงไปเพราะว่าทำไมเราผิดศีลเราเชื่อว่าอัตตาตัวตนของเราไปฆ่าเขาเมงวันหรือยุงมากัดเราเป็นใหญ่เรามีอำนาจเราจะฆ่าคุณคืออัตตาตัวตนใช่ไหมถ้าเรามีการให้อภัยทานไม่ฆ่าความรู้สึกตัวตนก็ต้องลดลงทันทีหรือบางที่เราก็ไปช่วยแมงวันก็ได้ช่วยคนก็ได้ช่วยสัตว์ก็ได้แผ่เมตตาเยอะๆอุทิศกุศลเยอะๆอัตตาตัวตนก็ลดน้อยลงถือศีลเข้มงวดสม่ำเสมออัตตาตัวตนก็น้อยลงนี่ก็ฝึกสมาธิภาวนาให้เข้าถึงสมาธิจิตนิ่งสงบความรู้สึกตัวตนก็หายไปชั่วคราวเราจะเห็นชัดมันเป็นภาระหนักถ้าเราละได้ทิ้งได้สงบนี้ออกจากสมาธิความรู้สึกตัวตนจะกลับมาบ้างแต่ว่าเดี๋ยวนี้เรามีสติปัญญารู้ทันมันอีโก้กลับมาแล้วแต่ไม่เอาทิ้งมันดีกว่ามันทุกข์ไม่มีอีโก้ไม่มีทุกข์ไม่มีอัตตาตัวตนไม่มีทุกข์เขาว่าอะไรก็ว่าไปเราก็ไม่ยึดติดตรงนั้นร่างกายเสื่อมตามอายุก็ไม่ยึดติดตรงนั้นเงินทองมีมากมีน้อยมีคนสรรเสริญนินทาก็ไม่สนใจเพราะว่าเรารู้สิ่งเหล่านี้มันไม่ใช่ตัวเราที่แท้จริงเป็นอาการภายนอกเรายึดภายในศีลสมาธิปัญญาดีกว่ายิ่งภาวนาความรู้สึกตัวตนก็ยิ่งน้อยลงหายไป So very much a repeat of the first question. Practicing this path, sila, samadhi, panya, is designed to reduce your sense of self, sakkaya ditthi, conceit, mana is the technical word, by seeing it as the cause of suffering, and when you see something as a cause of suffering, you want to let go. So people say, well, does that mean you can't have any sense of self, any view? Well, you can, but you also at the same time contemplate that it's impermanent and it's a conditioned thing, it's not real. I mean, which part of this body or mind is the self? This is the question the Buddha posed in the Anatta Lakkhana Sutta. Is this body the self? If it is, then it should follow my commands. Don't get old, don't get sick, don't get ill, don't get COVID, don't get aches and pains when I meditate. If your body is yourself, you should be able to command it not to have any pain. But you can't. You can know it as not self, but you can't command it and make it do what you want. So when you still have that sense of ownership of your body, you'll suffer. I'm in pain, I'm ill, I'm getting old, I don't want this. Feeling the same, I just want pleasure, I don't want pain. But you can't have pleasure only, you get pain as well. Thoughts, you don't want any thoughts in your mind, get rid of all thoughts. If thought is self, you should be able to just order it, stop thinking. Mind, stop thinking, but it won't, because thought is conditioned by what's gone before, your attachments, your desires. So you have to keep looking at that and see through to the lack of self in thought, lack of self in perception, memory, and sense consciousness. These 5 khandhas. These are what we take as self, but we have to investigate to remove that delusion. So a good way to experience no self, at least temporarily, is attain some samadhi, a state of calm, your mind unifies, the thinking goes quiet, your mind is just peaceful, the body is not bothering you, you're just with the mind in a peaceful, still state. You're seeing, all that sense of self has disappeared. No anger, no desire, no worry, no fear. All the things you normally associate with self have gone. And some people don't like that. They get afraid. They say, oh, everything stopped, no thought, can't feel anything, my body seems to have disappeared. So they have fear arise, which pulls the sense of self back very quickly. That's the kilesas, the craving, the attachment kind of fighting back. So you have to be very calm. That's why faith in the Buddha Dhamma Sangha helps at that point. Mindfulness helps. Patience, endurance helps. Even if the things you normally identify with as self disappear, don't panic. Just watch and learn. Looks like quite a few questions in Thai. We might have to alternate here. Dear Ajahn, I'm getting old, I can't read small handwriting. Dear Ajahn, I've heard that to take off meditation, right view needs to be established first. How does one establish right view? To take off meditation, I guess you mean to take off in meditation, or for your meditation to take off, progress, succeed, I guess. So, listen to a lot of Dhamma is a good start. Read the suttas, read Ajahn Chah, his books are really good. Listen to Dhamma talks, and then try to remember some of the Dhamma, think about it and process it and understand it yourself. This is the beginning of right view. I think I was talking about it this morning. The Buddha compared right view to the sun coming over the mountain over there in the morning. It's like the light of the sun starts to shine at 5 a.m. coming up. So you hear some Dhamma, it's like you start to understand a bit more clearly the way the truth is, the way things are. Maybe about the Four Noble Truths, and there's suffering, there's the cause of suffering, the path leading to the end of suffering, the end of suffering. You're sort of hearing the Dhamma and you get some idea of the structure and the way things are and the roadmap for getting out of suffering. It's like the sun coming up, you start to understand, your mind becomes brighter. So listen to a lot of Dhamma. But then you also have to put it into practice. So you have to put forth effort. Come on retreats, do sitting and walking, practice a lot of mindfulness, practice a lot of letting go. Keep teaching yourself what's important, what's not important. The unimportant stuff you can let go. You come here, you don't have to be planning your holiday in Gold Coast next year when you're here. Forget that. You don't have to be writing your shopping list for next week when you get home while you're here. Forget that. Everything is made easy here. The food is laid on. You've got your accommodation, however simple. You don't have to go and do anything. You've hardly got to do any chores. We help out a little bit, but it's fairly simple stuff. You can put a lot of time and effort into practicing mindfulness without any interruptions, without distractions. The most distracting thing is a bit of rain or a kookaburra laughing next to you. These kind of distractions are not much trouble to deal with. But your mind, you keep thinking about stuff, remembering old stuff. Some people are dragging around all their loves and hates from the past. So when you get bored in your meditation, sometimes people say even if they got an angry thought, if they're bored, they'd rather think an angry thought than no thought at all because they're bored. So they start going into their grudges and who they hate and all this. Don't do that, let it go. Or go the other way, start thinking about loves, who you love, what you want, fantasizing. Don't do that either, let it all go. Then you'll progress very fast in your meditation. Maybe you'll attain samadhi quite quickly. If you want samadhi, you have to put everything down. If you're still one who picks it all up, carries it along, you're not going to settle down in samadhi. You're going to have a tired mind that keeps thinking and remembering everything and holding on. Some people are like that. They'd rather hold on and suffer than let go and be free. So you have to remind yourself, be mindful, keep doing it. Next question. การนั่งสมาธิเมื่อจิตเรานิ่งแล้วมีอะไรมากระทบต้องทำยังไงคะควรวางแล้วไปต่อหรือควรเพ่งให้รู้เพ่งให้เกิดปัญญาครับครับ I'll answer in Thai first. เมื่อจิตเรานิ่งแล้วถ้ามันนิ่งจริงๆก็นี่เป็นกุศลแล้วเป็นสิ่งที่ดีสิ่งที่เราต้องการให้นิ่งเยอะๆแล้วมีอะไรมากระทบก็ถ้านิ่งก็อะไรมากระทบมันก็ไม่กระทบเท่าไหร่เพราะว่ามันนิ่ง มีนิ่งหลายแบบเนาะนิ่งแบบมีสติต่อเนื่องรู้ทันอะไรมากระทบก็รู้โอ้สักแต่ว่ารู้ตาเห็นรูปก็สักแต่ว่าเห็นหูได้ยินเสียงสักแต่ว่าได้ยินเพราะมีสติจิตนิ่งไม่ทุกข์ไม่เกิดยินดีชอบไม่เกิดเพราะมีสติ ไม่เกิดยินร้ายไม่ชอบเพราะมีสติถ้านิ่งแบบมีสติดีมากเจริญวิปัสสนาได้ง่ายปัญญาเกิดง่ายจะเห็นสิ่งเหล่านี้มันเกิดแล้วก็ดับถ้านิ่งแบบทางโลกบางทีก็นั่งไม่มีเสียงไม่มีอะไรมากระทบช่วงนี้สงบแต่ว่าที่จริงมันสงบแค่ภายนอกใจก็ยังพร้อมที่จะคิดปรุงแต่งไปก็ได้ยินเสียงก็จะคิดเสียงอะไรเสียงนกชนิดไหนมันไปไหนมันทำอะไรเสียงรถเขาไปไหนใครขับรถมาคิดปรุงแต่งไปอันนี้ไม่ใช่นิ่งแบบมีสตินี่แบบนิ่งไม่มีอะไรเกิดขึ้นเลยก็พอมีอะไรมาเกิดไม่มีสติปัญญารู้ไม่เท่าทันการก็จะคิดปรุงแต่งไปสร้างความรู้สึกตัวตนขึ้นมาชอบไม่ชอบแล้วก็คิดปรุงแต่งไปฟุ้งซ่านไปไม่สงบแต่คนก็ชอบนิ่งแบบทางโลกก็จะพยายามบางคนก็จะไปในที่ไม่มีแสงสีเสียงไม่มีอะไรเหมือนอยู่ในถ้ำพระบางรูปชอบอยู่ในถ้ำเพราะมันนิ่งออกจากถ้ำก็ทุกข์เพราะมันมีอะไรมากระทบมากนิ่งด้วยสติปัญญาดีกว่าเหมือนหลวงพ่อชาเคยพูดภาวนาที่จริงภาวนาให้ลืมตาดูเพราะบางทีเราจะลับตาเราจะพยายามหนีสิ่งที่มากระทบเราเพราะสติปัญญายังอ่อนอยากหนีนะที่จริงก็ไม่ผิดนะบางครั้งเราก็ต้องหนีพักผ่อนแต่ว่าปัญญายังไม่เกิดเพราะว่าสติยังไม่พอยังไม่ได้พิจารณาเพราะว่าหนีไปก่อนแต่พอเราลืมตาขึ้นหมายถึงเรารับรู้อะไรเห็นตาเห็นรูปหูฟังเสียงลิ้นมีสัมผัสรสดมกลิ่นสัมผัสทางผิวหนังหรือมีความคิดขึ้นมาในใจให้ลืมตาดูเปิดตาดูแล้วก็พิจารณาสิ่งเหล่านี้มันมีลักษณะยังไงมันเกิดแล้วก็มันดับมันไม่เที่ยงสิ่งที่ไม่เที่ยงมันทุกข์หรือมันสุขมันทุกข์เพราะมันไม่เที่ยงไม่สามารถที่จะให้ความสุขถาวรได้สิ่งที่มันไม่เที่ยงมันทุกข์มันสมควรที่จะเรียกเป็นตัวเป็นตนไหมก็ไม่สมควรเพราะว่ามันเกิดแล้วก็ดับตามเหตุปัจจัยไม่ได้อยู่ในอำนาจของเราไม่มีตัวตนอยู่ในนั้นไม่ใช่ของเรา ก็ไม่สมควรที่จะเข้าไปยึดว่าเป็นเราอันนี้จะเป็นทางเกิดปัญญาตัณหาจะตับลงไปต่อเมื่อสติปัญญาเกิดขึ้นก็ต้องฝึกสติมากๆจะได้รู้ทันสิ่งที่มากระทบถ้าดีที่สุดเราฝึกสติจนจิตนิ่งเป็นสมาธิเหมือนที่ว่านิ่งแต่พอออกจากสมาธิลืมตาต้องรักษาสติให้ได้จะได้พิจารณาเห็นสภาวะสิ่งที่มาเจอมากระทบยากที่สุดก็คือรักษาสติออกจากสมาธิแล้วเราเดินไปแทนที่จะกำหนดสติพิจารณาสิ่งที่เกิดขึ้นกับเราเห็นเพื่อนเพลิดเพลินคุยกับเพื่อนหรือไปนอนหรือไปคุยหรือไปหาโทรศัพท์หรือก็ไปกินข้าวไปอะไรไม่ได้รักษาสติก็เลยไม่ค่อยได้พิจารณาไม่ค่อยได้เกิดปัญญาดีที่สุดก็ออกจากสมาธิแล้วก็รักษาสติไปเรื่อยๆให้ระมัดระวังให้ระมัดระวังว่าเราอะไรมากระทบดูว่ามันเป็นยังไงมันเกิดแล้วก็ดับคิดอะไรมันเกิดมันก็ดับทำวิปัสสนาไปเรื่อยๆ So the question was, when our mind is still in samadhi, how should we practice when things come to the mind, when we have different sense contact? So I was saying, well, if you're really still in samadhi with mindfulness, you've attained some samadhi because you're mindful, the important thing is to keep that mindfulness there as you withdraw from that state of stillness. Like if you're really still, you won't think, you won't be having thoughts, you won't feel anything in your body, your mind is still. It's just knowing itself. Maybe you're focused on the breath to the point your mind merges with the breath. So you're not hearing, thinking, going out to anything else. You're not caught in the past, in the future. You're just knowing the breath to the point where even the breath disappears. The important thing is, as you're withdrawing from that to a more normal state where thoughts re-emerge, what do you do then? And most people blow it. They finish their meditation, they may have been really blissful, and then they walk out and they look for their friend and start talking about something. Or they go and do different activities and forget about their mindfulness and their meditation. They go to sleep, or do something. The important thing is to keep the mindfulness going and contemplate the arising and passing away of thoughts, perceptions, feelings, changes in the body, sensations. Keep doing it. It's the hardest part of the meditation, is to keep your mindfulness after you've finished your meditation session. Because you want to stop, you want to do something else. Don't. Keep watching and seeing the arising and passing away of phenomena, sense objects and thoughts. It's how we practice vipassana, and then wisdom and insight will arise more and more. Another problem is sometimes there's the stillness that comes more from just conditions rather than mindfulness, and that's a problem where you attach to being in a very quiet, protected environment, so you don't have to have any sense contact, and you'll feel peaceful. There's nothing you have to worry about or deal with. And sometimes that's helpful, but it's not a long-term solution, is it? Because life isn't like that. You have to meet with different sense objects as you come out of your nice protected place. So the typical example is the practitioner goes to the cave retreat. No sounds, no smells, nothing bothering them. It's so quiet, they get really blissful. And then they come out of the cave, there's noise and activity, and they're seeing things and hearing people and meeting people, and they don't like it. Suddenly there's all this sense contact. Oh, it's not peaceful anymore. But that's not real stillness, and it's not how we develop insight, is it? You're just clinging to your nice peaceful place as your goal of your practice. You know, as long as you've got your cave or your peaceful place, you're happy. When you come out, you're not happy. So you're not yet developing insight into your sense contact and how it stirs up craving and attachment. And that's where you have to practice. You have to look at things, understand, see what is leading to what. When you like something, ask yourself, this liking, is it peaceful or not? Keep obsessing your mind, stirring you up. Or the thing you like, how good is that? Maybe look at the disadvantages of the thing you like. There's different ways to deal with it, but you have to contemplate and investigate. If you're just relying on stillness alone, it's not your mind is very fragile, and you won't really understand how craving causes suffering. You just cling to your nice peaceful place. So there's still quite a few questions, but I think probably enough for tonight. This is already after 9 o'clock, so we can save these for tomorrow.